Good evening, welcome to the City of Newcastle Board of Adjustment hearing on Thursday, December 5th, 2024. May I have the roll call, please?
Stephen Orr. Jeff Bergstrom, the building official. Stephen Orr.
Assunta Scarpetti.
Valerie Leary.
Bob Irwin. Mike Altman, city attorney. Chris Rogers, city planner.
Thank you. A reminder, I've been asked to remind everybody tonight that when a vote is taken, before you speak your vote, if you'll please identify by name. And it will help Kathy when she looks at everything again. I will read the application for this evening. Board of Adjustment 2024-6. An application has been filed by 508 South Street LLC, owner and applicant, for a property located in the DG zoning district at 508 South Street, Newcastle, Delaware 19720, tax parcel number 21-014.00-390, to request to change an existing non-conforming use within a structure in the DG zoning district to another non-conforming use pursuant to section 230-10, parent C of the City of Newcastle zoning code. Do I invite public comments now or after? After, thank you. Mr. Hoffman, I'll let you take over from here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the board and the benefit of the applicant and public, currently in the official record on this matter is exhibit number 1. That is the City of Newcastle Board of Adjustment Notice of Public Hearing for Thursday, December 5th, 2024, 6:30 p.m. This notice has been properly published and posted in accordance with the city code. Also in the record is exhibit 2, which is a picture of the property posting. We also have exhibit 3, which is an October 25 letter from John Tracy, attorney for the applicant, containing the application. And exhibit 4 is the supplemented and updated application dated October 30th, 2024. Madam Mayor, members of the board, that is the record as it currently exists.
Thank you. Mr. Tracy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Board down. Good evening, folks. Seems I always draw the Christmas assignments in front of the City of Newcastle Board of Adjustment. I don't know if that's good or bad. For the record, my name is John Tracy. I'm an attorney with Young, Connolly, Stargatt and Taylor. I'm here on behalf of the property owner, 508 South Street LLC, represented by Mark Midori, sitting on the far left over there. Next to Mark is Brian Allen on behalf of the prospective tenant of this building. Area 1 is the name of his entity. I only have really one exhibit to hand out, which is just a series of 3 photos of the existing building, an aerial photo of the site, and then a floor plan of the use that we're proposing within this building. This is a rather unique application. I am guessing the board has not seen, I have more if they run out before they get down there, that the board has seen in the past. This is an application seeking to permit an indoor Nerf. We all remember Nerf from our youth play facility, to occupy a building that formerly housed the Brandywine Valley SPCA and the Brocious Eliason Industrial Park. Because the SPCA use was considered non-conforming under the city code, a new non-conforming use can only occupy the structure upon review and approval of this board pursuant to 2310.c, finding that the use may be changed if the board finds that the proposed use is equally appropriate or more appropriate to the area than the prior non-conforming use was. As we think that is the case with this proposed use, that is why we're here before you this evening. As you see on the exhibit that I handed out, the subject property in this instance is a single building within this industrial park. The building was constructed prior to 1966, and as I mentioned, has housed a variety of tenants, most recently the SPCA. The SPCA use occupied the building under its prior I zoning classification, and like the other uses in this park, became non-conforming when the city adopted the DG zoning district that now governs this particular property. There was a savings period of time that was in place for these types of uses, and then they become legally non-conforming after that expired. Legally non-conforming, for those who have not heard the term before, means the use was legal when it was established. Then the zoning code changes through no fault of the property owner and making the use non-compliant with the zoning code. In those instances, we consider them to be legally non-conforming, which allows them to continue until they terminate under certain restrictions. The City of Newcastle Code, however, does have a provision that allows a non-conforming use to be changed to another non-conforming use under the standards that I gave you previously. As part of that, no external changes to the exterior of the building other than perhaps cosmetic are allowed to occur, and certainly no expansion of the building is allowed to occur as part of that change. The prior use, as the board likely recalls, was an animal shelter and a hospital for animals ultimately placed up for adoption. I inherited the world's worst cat from the Brandywine Valley SPCA, and it graced our presence for about 15 and a half years. So, we all know the SPCA had a very laudable purpose, including trying to become a no-kill shelter. In doing this, however, I think many on the board became aware there was a large stable of animals within the SPCA at times waiting for adoption. And as such, particularly for the dogs, there was need for outdoor activity and exercise. This in turn led the SPCA to return to this board on at least 2 occasions, seeking to expand their non-conforming use for outdoor play areas and runs for the dogs, one of which was actually approved and one of which was denied. Part of the concerns that the board heard at the time, and anybody that lived in the area is probably aware of, is there were noise and smells attendant to the SPCA use that were occurring in the area because the dogs are being exercised outside. They walk around the property. The SPCA and the Board of Adjustment decisions previously for this property indicated their goal was to try to walk the dogs 3 times a day, if possible, as we all understand. Dogs enjoy that activity, which again is why I'm a cat person, but I digress. And there were complaints related to these, the barking of the dogs and things of that nature over time. The SPCA provided a variety of services, boarding, housing, medical, and surgery up to 6 days a week, excluding Sundays, and operated on most days anywhere from 9 o'clock in the morning to on occasion as late as 7 o'clock in the evening. Even on the day that it was not open to the public, on Sundays, staff would be there to take care of the animals, walk the animals, feed the animals during those times. So that it really was a 7-day-a-week operation. These noise concerns, as the prior Board of Adjustment decisions indicated, was not only the barking and all that, but there are also ventilation fans and stuff that were making noise, getting stuff out of the building and circulating air within the building. So there was a significant impact on surrounding properties. We're proposing to swap that use out for an indoor use that is fairly common in parks such as this, as folks have looked to expand entertainment and activity opportunities for children and young adults. You've seen a lot of these types of uses, such as indoor cheer academies, indoor soccer facilities, trampoline and moon bounce parks, laser tag and rock climbing gyms, and most recently I got a badminton facility approved in a park such as this, all presenting opportunities to teach and learn and give kids the opportunity to have fun in an indoor, safe and confined environment. And this Nerf facility that we're talking about tonight is one of the newest entrants into these facilities. I think we all may remember, at least I'm old enough to remember, Nerf footballs and the Nerf basketball hoops that you used to set over your trash can in your bedroom and stuff. This has expanded as anybody in the last 15 and 20 years who's had kids, particularly boys, into these Nerf soft pellet guns that you would battle back and forth with. I know we had plenty, and my kids are 29 and 27 out of the house. And I was telling Mr. Allen, we're still finding these pellets at various places inside of our basement in the house. In creating the Nerf event space, this center, like many other recreational facilities, is taking an outdoor and in-house use and providing a safe monitored indoor area for the activity. You have the proposed floor plan of the use inside, which basically has 5 courts of various sizes with some practice areas and 2 party rooms for birthdays or other events that would also use these facilities. No kitchen services would be provided on site. Any food coming to the site for a birthday party or something like that would either be brought by the person hosting the party or be catered by an outside vendor who would be bringing the food to the site. There would be simple vending machines on site for snacks and drinks. The facility is going to be closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, so it's only open Wednesday through Sunday. On Wednesdays through Fridays, it opens at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. On the weekends, it would open at noon. During the week, it would close at 9, except on Saturdays, it would close at 10. On Sundays, they would close at 7. Play activities and stuff would be ceasing before those times. All the activity is inside. There is no exterior activity other than people coming and going from the facility. There'll be no active retail being conducted on the site. They would sell the Nerf guns and Nerf paraphernalia there, but that would be for people who are attending an event and decide they like something so much they would like to have their own. So it's not something that's marketed to the outside as a retail opportunity. So that's the proposal in a nutshell, and Mr. Allen is here and he can talk about it, particularly if you have questions. But just looking at the standard, as I mentioned, this is a fairly unique request with a fairly basic standard that the proposed use is considered non-conforming, and assuming so that it's at least as appropriate, if not more appropriate for the site than the SPCA use. We talked about what a non-conforming use is based on the prior Board of Adjustment decisions for this property. The SPCA operation was considered a non-conforming use, is permitted under the I zoning, not under the DG zoning. Based on a review of the code, I could not find a permitted use within the DG code that would allow this particular type of operation to occur. However, if you look at other zoning districts, in particular the GC General Commercial Zoning District, it expressly permits indoor and outdoor active recreational uses such as bowling alley, game arcades, miniature golf or race courses, golf or batting ranges, fairgrounds, amusement parks, and other similar uses. That would seem to be the use that most captures what this particular use is. That's not something that's contained within the DG zone, making this a proposed non-conforming use. Again, this is far more limited than what I read to you. It's one activity focused on one type of recreational activity, but nevertheless, it seems to fit into that category. Assuming the board concludes that it's non-conforming, then it's that balancing of is it as appropriate, if not more appropriate. And I think this instance, it is a more appropriate use. First of all, it's an indoor use as opposed to an outside use. So as I mentioned, the SPCA was both indoor and outdoor. And so there were various complaints generated related to things that animals normally do, particularly when they're in outside play groups. That's not occurring here. Everything's happening indoors behind closed doors. So there is no outside activity on the site. The SPCA, as I mentioned, was actually open for far longer periods of time than what we're proposing to do. It was essentially, as I mentioned, a 7-day-a-week operation because of what needed to happen even on the days that are closed. This is actually a limited facility with limited hours because its primary focus, tweens and teens, are in school until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is why on Wednesday through Friday, it's only opening at 3, and then it's more open on the weekends. So there's less traffic flow, there's less people coming. It's also very scheduled. This isn't a use that draws people from off the street. Hey, I want to do something, let's go here. Everything is scheduled. The courts are reserved. So you come in at your appointed time with your group and you can play, and then your time is over, you leave and the next group comes in. In addition, all 5 of the courts that you see on that floor plan would likely not be in activity at the same time because the arrivals are staggered. So there's opportunity to clean the court before the next people get on. So that it's very difficult to have all 5 of them in operation. As you see, the anticipated maximum attendance in each of the courts is listed on that floor plan as well. In addition, we have ample parking on the property. We have 35 spots in front of the building. We have another 20 to 25 spots on the side and behind the building, which again is beneficial because this use is active when the other uses in the park are not. So we have the ability to handle plenty of vehicles if they show up, although typically we think the general usage will be between 20 to 25 cars, but we have space for more. We have space for the employees to park to the rear. That's essentially it. As I mentioned, the retail is internal and not advertised externally. There are no other games. There are no arcade games on site, so no video games or pinball, if you ever even still plays pinball these days, on there. There's only ambient music that is involved. And again, it's all behind closed doors, just as people are playing. It's kind of like you're in a department store or something, that type of music that would play. So it's inside. So, and one thing, and I discussed with both Mr. Bergstrom as well as Max Walton, who's being ably substituted by his more capable colleague, Mr. Hoffman over there. I can butter the bread and more like anybody, but the code is really weird. And we had this conversation because when the DG code was adopted, it provided all this language in there about preserving non-conforming uses, allowing non-conforming uses to continue and to be swapped out. But one thing that it has in there is you can't have a legacy I-zoned use with a permitted DG use, meaning if this, and I think it's really only something that becomes apparent when you have a property like this, which has multiple buildings. So the way the code is written, a DG use cannot come in and occupy this building without making all of the other uses on the site, not just non-conforming, but probably needing a use variance to stick around because of the way the code is phrased. So you're left with this weird situation. If a new use can't inhabit this building and the old use wants to leave, it then sits vacant until somebody either wants to come in and redevelop the entire site, or you come and try to seek some other type of relief. So that's why in this instance, to avoid a building becoming empty, providing an opportunity for the kids in Newcastle and the kids around Newcastle to utilize, allowing another non-conforming use to enter into this property is the best way to keep this particular building viable and allow the park to continue to thrive. So I will stop at that point. As I mentioned, Mr. Allen, the proprietor of the business, is here and he can certainly answer any questions. And Mr. Midori is here as the owner of the property. He can answer questions as well.
Thank you. Does anyone have, I have to.
Yeah, you open it up to public comment, you'll close it at the end, but
Gotcha.
Madam Mayor, I did have one just clarifying question. Mr. Tracy, can you confirm, you had mentioned the standard is there can't be other than external
Cosmetic modifications, yeah.
Can you confirm that that's the case, that they're only cosmetic?
Yeah, they're not making, in fact, I haven't seen anything change it. My guess is they might want to swap at the sign, but they would have to comply with the county or city requirements with regard to that. No expansion of the building is taking place, no modifications to the building, they're taking place exterior.
I have a question about hours of operation.
Yeah.
You alluded to your target, audience, I guess, teens and tweens, and the hours of operation are consistent with folks that are gonna be in school. What about summer holidays? Are those hours gonna be expanded during that time?
The opening hours are going to stay the same. It's possible that on a weekend, like a Friday, they might look for an additional hour to stay open on the back end. But I had in the business plan that was provided to me, there's no change in the start times during the summer.
Thank you.
Public comment, I guess.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
We do have one, yes, you're on it.
Before I read this, is there any other public comment?
Can I say something?
Come right up here, state your name. I believe up here, I believe there's a sign-in sheet up there, or there should be, and if not.
You could use that pen. You could sign your name in on that sheet up there.
No, he's not,
See that?
he's not witness, he's public comment.
Did you take the notebook that was up there?
Yeah, I did.
Thank you.
I wanted to do Pat. We were out of the office. Saying, okay.
You're like, where? Thank you.
So, thanks, my name is Tommy Femia. I live across the street from the building, actually.
what's going in is a lot better than all the rumors that were happening. So I'm kind of glad that it is that kind of business. The only concern I have is the hours of operation. The end, the closing, and especially if you're talking about closing at 11 o'clock and your targets are teenagers. Even when the SPCA was there at the end of their closing, staff who were younger would gather in the parking lot and talk for an hour or so. Sometimes it got a little more rambunctious than other times. And if you're talking about teenagers and 11, 10 o'clock at night is when I'm trying to go to bed. And that's the only concern I have is how are you going to get those the customers to clear out and not congregate in the parking lot, because it's a very active thing that they're doing there, right? They're not going to come out, they're coming out all pumped. And that's my only concern, especially if you're talking about until 11 o'clock at night. Then well, they're saying maybe in the future, and I don't want to be hearing, a bunch of teenagers waiting around for an hour, and I have nothing against it, but not at 11 o'clock. That's my only concern about this whole thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other public comment? Right, we have a letter that was sent to us that was asked to be read at tonight's meeting. It's submitted by Bill Gross, 1301 13th Street, Newcastle. Regarding letter to be read at tonight's meeting. Good evening, Board of Adjustment Commissioners. Regarding agenda item number 1, I don't feel that BOA 2024-6 an application should be approved. By approving this change, you're giving the go-ahead for the project to proceed. I feel that by voting BOA 2024-6 and application down, you're sending a clear signal that overbuilding needs to be halted. I just want everyone to understand, I am reading it as it is written. Okay, I'm not making adjustments. Route 9 heading south continuously floods, and that area is going to be overcrowded and will continue to be an unsafe traffic-ridden situation with all of the approved projects. The future residents of the projects on the books will have no way out of our city on any of our emergency evacuation routes, considering the volume of cars that would need to use these routes. By the way, I've submitted a FOI request to get a clear picture of the number or already approved projects, as our city's website doesn't show the amount, and our council members or mayors seem to have a grasp on that number, or they aren't being truthful with the residents of the city. Please say no to agenda item number 1, BOA 2024-6, an application. Regarding agenda item number 4, discussion and possible vote regarding Board of Adjustment rules. I ask that this board add the wording into the Board of Adjustment rules, something like public comments concerning agenda items or anything pertaining to the Board of Adjustment. Respectfully submitted, Philip Gross. There are no other public comments. I will
Just rebuttal.
rebuttal. I'm sorry.
That's why I don't want to not leave the question answered. I won't respond to Mr. Gross's comments. You guys can take those under whatever advisement you believe is appropriate. Just with regard to the closing hours are going to be 10 o'clock. They're not going to be 11 o'clock, which means the last appointment to use a court would start at 9 o'clock. So the courts would be winding down before we get to that 10 o'clock hour. Mr. Allen is very sensitive to being in the neighborhood and monitoring what's going on. So he is committed to actively move people off the site. Obviously, once you get open and you see how things are actually operating, there can be different things that can be implemented. He's aware of his obligations with regard to noise ordinances and disturbing the peace, so he doesn't want to have any disruptions any more than you do. But it's not 11 o'clock stop time. 10 would be the latest stop time. And that would be when it closes, so game stuff would be ending before that.
Thank you. We'll close the hearing on BOA 2024-3. Any discussion? Fine.
I agree that, you know, you gotta get the kids out, like, 10 o'clock, they gotta get out of the parking lot. If you hang out in the parking lot all night, you know, that has been an issue in Newcastle before, like even some of the parking lots. People tend to congregate in, so you just gotta keep an eye on that and make sure you squash it. But other than that, it's a good use for the property, something nice for the community.
Mr. Bergstrom, do you have any comment?
Well, professionally, I think it's certainly a downgrade from the external negative effects of this SPCA that was there. This is gonna be quieter, smell better, and have fewer people in and out of there. I really do think it's inappropriate.
You scared me with the word downgrade.
It's certainly no more of a nonconformity than the original SPCA.
I actually think it's a great idea. I believe where some of the concern is in one of the statements that you had said was during the summer, there may be extended hours on the back end, which is where that concern came up. And I can completely agree with that, because obviously you don't want, and usually what they say, and this is really gonna make me sound old, but when you get a bunch of teenagers hanging out too late at night, well, then, you know, what happens? And then property may, you know, and you never know. So I think that's where the concern was. So I believe that if it's, you know, at the 10 o'clock stop and then if it has to be revisited, then that's but I think it's good. I think it's gonna bring activity, and it's not a building just sitting there. So I think sounds like a great idea. Mr. Erwin?
So I like the idea, given that there's no external changes to the footprint of the property, so that's good. As someone who transports teenage soccer players and smelling them after, I'm not gonna comment on the smell of teenagers versus.
Versus the
Leave that-
No,
leave
that might be a 50-50.
Yeah, that's probably a wash. I like the fact that it's indoor use. My concern as echoed, I'm sorry, sir, I don't call your name, but I would echo the concern about hours of operation, turning people out at the back end. That's certainly a consideration. I think, you know, as Steve said, we have to keep an eye on that from the city perspective. Beyond that, I think safe indoor entertainment opportunities for youth is always a good thing. So I commend you all for, you know, thinking about that. And I think that this is probably equally appropriate to the previous non-conforming use. Nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers?
The only comment I have, Madam Mayor, is that I agree that I think this use is equally appropriate or more appropriate to the district than the previous use of the property as an YMCA. I did have one question. Can I ask a question of the public arts been closed? It does look like they have adequate parking. That's one thing that I looked at. There's ample parking in front of the building, and like Mr. Tracy said, there's parking around the rear too, if it happens to be a need for shared parking. Okay, that's the only comment I have. Thank you.
You had it.
It was a question, you know, the question.
Once you close the public record, you can't have any additional.
I think this is a great use. I'm of the facility as well. Your concerns may not always be with teenagers, but the adults who may clear out into the parking lot as well. But I would probably like to see something, assuming that folks coming in sign a waiver of some sort or a contract, that waiver or contract will specify that once they are finished, that they must clear the property, you know, after reasonable amount of time, that they would clear the property, and that means leaving the parking lot. So I don't know if something like that can be worked into the waiver or contract. I only had a couple calls today regarding if there was gonna be lawn signage. I know that's sort of public, that now, but that was a concern. So, but I think all other concerns have been expressed.
Do we have to go through the 4-point test on this one, or is this, no, this is?
No, it's just, it literally is that simple balancing test on this.
Okay, so make a motion to approve the non-conforming use, is that what we need to do?
Correct.
All right, I make a motion to approve the non-conforming use.
Bob Irwin, second.
Steve Zora makes the motion.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Steve Zora makes the motion.
We'll have a roll call vote, please, starting this end.
Okay, but I approve, Steve Zora approves the non-conforming use.
Assumpta Scarpitti approves the non-conforming use.
Valerie Leary approves the non-conforming use.
Bob Irwin approves the non-conforming use.
That is a majority, and the non-conforming use has passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will not interrupt your rules discussion.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We'll be in touch with the decision.
We now have a discussion, the way it's printed out. We now have a discussion on the rules of procedure for the Board of Adjustment of the City of Newcastle. Mr. Hoffman, can you explain how this came about and the necessity, please?
Certainly. So, Max was running the primary point on this, but it is typically best practice for an organization, especially a board of adjustment, to have a set of rules that outlines the procedure. A, it keeps you consistent in how you run the hearings. B, it allows the public, applicants, and others to understand what procedures to expect. Again, it goes back to fairness, due process, and consistency. And one thing way the board benefits is even on something like tonight, where making clear when you can ask questions. Best practice is actually to bring Chris and Jeff in the public hearing portion, so that they can ask questions and get that testimony on. I missed that, Madam Mayor, so I apologize, but that's where you get the benefit from having the set of rules, where you can go through and each hearing that you're following best practice. So this has been drafted with those best practices in mind.
So, Mr. Walton had made some changes. I did not read the original, so I can't, and there is no, highlight on here that indicates changes. The one that I may have noted is that it was limited to 60 minutes for the attorney instead of allowing. I forget, let's see, what section was it? 7C.
Final word.
Yeah, they do. So that was that. And then the only other thing, and not that I want to change, I just want to make sure that it is supposed to be it's not supposed to be in here, or we need to add it, is for public comments unless I missed it when I read it, but public comments are a matter that we have to go on.
The company in. I saw something about the favorite word, I guess.
That's witnesses. I think you're right, Madam Mayor. We would add a new section 7F. That's just public comment.
But public comment would be limited to items on the agenda only, because this is not so much a meeting, but a hearing. And so comments on other items not included on the agenda are not really.
Well, would you want to say public comment limited to application and items on the agenda? Mhm.
We have to set the time in there also.
The 3-minute rule.
Public comment limited to applications on the agenda.
The timeframe, right?
Which remains 3 minutes to be consistent with city council and other meetings. Is that correct? We need to make a motion on that to include that.
Yes, and I think when you get to the motion, you can simply say motion to approve as amended.
Okay. Is there anything that anyone else noticed? Go ahead.
No, when I read through it, I actually thought this is what we were already doing.
Well,
You know?
Mhm.
yes,
It's just not written down.
yeah, and Mr. Walton had told me at the last meeting that he had advised the presenting attorney that he had 60 minutes.
That's it's going to be 2 attorneys.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be 2 attorneys.
I don't know that you can tag team it off. Like, I finished my 60 minutes. I don't think that you can't tag team.
You're gonna limit Sean and.
I don't know if that needs to
Yeah,
be
he's just getting
included.
started after an hour.
The way that it's written is it's the presentation is limited to 50
Ah,
minutes. So
gotcha.
whether it's
So-
an attorney or
Or
an
anybody
applicant.
else.
the
Okay, yeah.
applicant.
That eliminates any tag team. All right. Any other comment? I understand, Mr. Bergstrom, that you found this copy of the rules in your stash.
Was there? I found the rules.
You found an old copy of the rules.
Yes, and you provided them to me.
Yes, thank you, so that we didn't have to redo.
Well, we have the city of Newark and where I chair, and the city of Newcastle had quite different set of rules.
Oh,
I provided the Newcastle City ones to Max.
Any other commentary? No. Can I have a motion to, oh, I can't make this motion. No, I can't make the motion. Chair can't make the motion. Can I have a motion to approve the Board of Adjustment rules as amended?
Make a motion to approve the board adjustment rules as amended. Stephen's order.
I think to Scarpelli seconds.
Do I need a roll call vote?
Yeah.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? This ends the items on the agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Bob Irwin made the motion.
Scarpelli seconds.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Yeah, we get-
Meeting adjourned.
There's no game on TV.
Yes.
Yes.